The days of meditation and self-improvement efforts were over. I walked everywhere with sunglasses and a pair of big wireless headphones on, though they played no music. I had lost the charging cable months ago. I could no longer bear to stop and talk to people, give them the cheery Cliff's Notes of my life, smile and promise I was doing great. Really good, actually. Then carry on to eat soup and cut my toenails and watch TV in a basement alone.
You just heard author and screenwriter Monica Heisey reading from her first novel, Really Good, actually. It's a tragicomic, true-to-life account of a young woman grappling with divorce when most of her friends are only dipping their toes into the world of dating. Well, the book's just been translated into French too as Super bien, merci. Monica's in the studio to tell us more. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, as we heard in the passage that you read, your protagonist is dealing with sadness, loneliness, sometimes feelings of failure after her marriage ends. And it's often said that divorce is up there with the most stressful events that someone can go through. But I can confirm that this is a very, very, very funny book. How were you convinced that you could find the humour in divorce?
I think from a very early stage of so I got divorced at a young age myself. And I think even from a very early stage, I could tell there was something kind of funny in it. Heartbreak is this incredibly devastating, but also very mundane, everyday thing. And even while you're like lying on the floor thinking you might die from it, you also know somewhere in the back of your head that you'll survive it. And that kind of juxtaposition felt pretty funny to me from the beginning.
Okay, so it's true to life. Now, you flag up in this book some of the big breakup cliches of popular culture. So songs, books, films that have become synonymous with heartbreak. Very relatable, I thought. When it comes to those cultural touchstones, what would you put in your breakup canon?
I think it's really important to get really into Simon and Garfunkel during a breakup.
Okay.
That was really crucial to me. I think any movie where a woman is drinking white wine and crying by herself, that's going to be an important part of it. And then I think in terms of reading, I think heartbreak is lovely because it just infuses whatever you're doing with this sense of melodrama. So you could almost be watching or reading anything, but it just feels really sort of wistful and important at the time.
Life becomes very theatrical. Now, author and screenwriter Nora Ephron famously said that everything is copy. She wrote about everything, marital problems, aging. It was arguably a braver thing to do in the 1980s when she was doing it because there were fewer platforms for sharing details about your private life. Do you think that revealing those personal details now has the same impact?
I think it depends what context you're revealing, and I guess what you're revealing in that context. I think there was a real boom of women, particularly women writers, kind of exposing all of their messiness and sometimes big trauma and sometimes sort of little embarrassments in personal essays. And I particularly wanted to write a novel rather than a memoir to kind of get away from that a bit and to use my experiences as a stepping point to create some interesting fiction rather than kind of just being like, this is what happened to me. The urge to kind of reveal everything has died down a little bit, at least for me creatively.
Okay. Well, I noticed a passage in your book that features a certain young pop star by the name of Harry Styles. I won't reveal his full role in the story. But what is it about Harry Styles that makes him the perfect fantasy boyfriend?
Yeah, there's a fantasy sequence in the book where Maggie, the protagonist, imagines running into her ex, and she's found herself a new love in the form of Harry Styles. And I think it's that histrionic obsession during a breakup where you're still thinking about the ex. You're not really thinking about Harry Styles. Harry Styles is the dream version of who would hurt your ex's feelings the most. So I just tried to think of a sort of incredibly famous, famously handsome, sort of has a sexy energy. You know, you just want someone who would really twist the knife if you ran into your partner with them on your arm.
Oh, compliment to Harry Styles there. Now, Really Good actually is a deeply contemporary novel in that it acknowledges just how much of our social, emotional, cultural life takes place online via a laptop or a phone. The internet's just as real for us, I think, as the coffee shop or the bar now as a space. How do you think social media has changed the way we tell these stories about relationships?
I think there's like an added element where we're kind of narrativizing as we go. Before, you would kind of have the experience and then you would look back on it maybe 6 months, a year later and think, oh, I kind of went a bit nuts during my breakup. But now you're kind of going nuts in real time and you're managing how that looks to the outside world, and you have the imagined audience that you have when you're going through a hard time has been made really real. And there are people who are sort of following along and being like, oh, she hasn't posted her husband in a while. I wonder what's going on there. So the kind of paranoid fantasies that you can have during a breakup are now like the lived reality of the breakup, which is pretty stressful.
Live tweeting trauma almost. Now, Really Good actually is your first novel, but you write extensively for television, notably on the series Working Moms, Baroness von Sketch Show, and the wildly successful Schitt's Creek. Now, that series broke records for awards nominations, and it has a cult following. So let's get a reminder of its unique comic tone.
When it's time to lay down your weary head, you'll find comfort and safety at the partially renovated Rosebud Motel. And don't forget to say hello to your handsome proprietor, Mr. Jonathan Rose.
Thank you for having us.
John, no.
Yes, there will be blood. And yes, you will be horror-struck.
Who wrote that?
I did.
Are you ready for a total physical and emotional transformation?
Nah.
Now, some people think the USP of Schitt's Creek is its very wholesome humour, which is a bit of a rarity these days. What do you think it is that sets the series apart?
I think the relationships are a huge part of the show. I think it never sacrifices true hard comedy punchlines, but there is a heart to it that people were obviously really hungry for, and that came from Dan Levy, the creator, right at the beginning. He just always knew where he wanted those characters to end up, and that even if they ripped each other to shreds sometimes, there was love at the core of the show.
It is very sweet and heartwarming. Now, as a writer, as a person, you come from Canada, and that is a Canadian show, but you moved to London quite young. How did the sense of humour transfer?
I think Canadian and British senses of humor are very similar, actually. We both spend a lot of time indoors. And I think the sense of humor is sort of a coping mechanism for dealing with those long winters and rainy days in a way. So I haven't found it too tricky to move over there. And I do think that the British comedy is some of the best in the world. So I feel really lucky to be working over there.
So it's a good fit. Now, as a screenwriter, you've expressed your solidarity with your fellow creatives at the Writers Guild of America who are on strike. They're holding a mass walkout over mainly pay and conditions in the industry. Wages have stagnated mostly there. There was also a worry that studios might start using artificial intelligence to write scripts. Is that something you think is realistic? Could you be replaced with artificial intelligence?
I would hope not. And I don't know if you've seen some of the scripts that the AI is producing, but let's just say it's not quite ready for rollout at this stage. I think that like using an algorithm or like a technological product to create a script is never going to give you what's important about a piece of art, which is that it's human. It comes from human intelligence, but also human emotions and human experience. So I hope that we can turn that around, because that would be quite a depressing state of affairs. And I particularly with comedy, just don't think that a computer can do a good joke.
That's true. But in this age of streaming, of course, where there is so much content being produced so quickly with such high demand, how do you see this strike panning out?
I think it might be a long one, you know? The last one was 108 days. So I wonder if this one will be longer or shorter than that. Obviously, since the last time this was happening, the streamers weren't really a thing. So the demand for the product that the writers are withholding is even more than ever. But I don't know if that's going to have an impact on the duration of the strike, because they are really digging their heels in.
It's very high stakes, as you say. Now, finally, we asked you to flag up a piece of art or culture, something on your radar that you particularly enjoyed. You mentioned the recent film, You Hurt My Feelings. I should imagine that some of this feels a bit familiar. It centers on a writer specifically. What did you love about it?
So I love the director and writer Nicole Holofcener's work, and the cast as well is incredible. As Julia Louis-Dreyfus is playing a novelist called Beth, and her husband, played by Tobias Menzies, she overhears him admitting to a friend that he doesn't think her latest book is very good. Now, I don't know why this was so front of mind for me particularly, but it's just such a beautiful exploration of when it's important to be honest and when it's important to kind of shut up in a relationship, and the small and big ways we can hurt each other. I think her work really looks at the big stakes of small moments, which is very appealing to me.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for the film tip, and thank you very much for coming in today to speak to us. We'll leave you with a clip of Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Tobias Menzies in You Hurt My Feelings. And do remember, you can get more arts and culture on our website and our social media feeds too. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
What kind of story were you thinking about, Hal?
Something in a prison.
Oh, all right. And what about a prison interests you?
Jail.
For sure.
Happy anniversary.
We're so lucky.
Yeah.
So, Elliot tells me you're a writer.
Your last one, it should have done better.
Look, come on, we'll go sneak up on him.
Can you say anything?
No, I can't. It feels too late.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I love you.
Oh, okay, well, then never mind.
Versailles, Mont Saint-Michel, the Louvre are well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbors many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24. Discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen and farmers, to Michelin star sporting chefs. Meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You are here on France 24 and France24.com.
Sí, esta es muy fuerte. Incluso me llegué ¿cómo se dice? A agarrar una sobredosis. Es que no tengo encendedor, solo voy a usar cerillos para calentarlo, para que se desbarate bien. Huele muy feo el cerillo. Sí, ¿verdad? Ajá, combinado con... Sí, esta es muy fuerte. Incluso me llegué ¿cómo se dice? A agarrar una sobredosis, algo así. Y me pusieron esa ampolleta para traerme para atrás, porque estaba muy fuerte, pues. Usé la misma cantidad que usaba antes y pues no, tenía esa cosa, fentanilo, y pues era muy, muy fuerte para mí.
Es un espacio donde las mujeres pueden venir, consumir de manera segura. Les ofrecemos, además de la información de cómo tener una inyección segura, les ofrecemos los insumos. Ellas llegan, les entregamos el material, jeringas, agua inyectable, las toallitas alcoholadas, todo el material que requieren para una inyección segura.
Y no me enseñaron a tener más paciencia, cómo se buscan y eso. Y luego después de que hago mi dosis, están al pendiente de que no vaya a pasar nada malo. Así, se portan bien, me gusta cómo se portan. Porque allá donde yo vivía al otro lado no había una parte así.
De mayo del 2021 a mayo del 2022, más o menos, la cifra aumentó, lo doble. Se duplicaron las sobredosis que nosotros estábamos reportando, ¿no? Tanto nosotros como la población, solamente de esta zona. Entonces,